Hello, happy Monday. If you are an executive or a senior individual contributor targeting 200,000 plus roles, I'm going to be talking to you today about what recruiters look for in an executive level resume. This is going to be an interesting live because it is close to 9 p.m. I did not prepare any slides or anything, and I'm going to totally talk to you off the cuff. What inspired this? A few things. One, I've been working on a few client resumes recently, and I've been seeing a lot of mistakes. And I thought, why don't I just share with my wonderful followers how I do this? Because frankly, there's a part of me that's tired of repeating myself, especially when a lot of people get on consultation calls and have all of these myths. And at the end of the day, whether I end up working with you or not, I do want people to have the right information. I obviously cannot work with every single person. There is only one of me. And whether I work with people or not, I do want people to be armed with the right information. So, like it or not, whether you are trying to apply to a role through a referral or you are trying to go through an external recruiter or you are applying for a job cold, you still need a resume. Let's not beat around the bush. I don't care who you talk to or what advice is out there until there is a different method to figure out what your experience is. Hopefully, I didn't break anything here. You need a resume. Okay. The resume is the most effective way to get your foot in the door. And you'll notice that even if you know someone inside the company, what do they say to you first? The first thing that they're going to say to you, send me your resume, right? Now, who the heck am I and what do I have to say about resumes? Well, here are a few things about me. First of all, I am a certified resume writer, and I've written at this point over 500 resumes from scratch, let alone helping my clients write their resume and reviewing resumes. The second thing that you should know about me is that I have been trained by a VP of HR, and as part of my certification, I learned how to write resumes from people who actually review resumes and are recruiters. And lastly, I have actually contributed to building a resume writing curriculum for resume writers and career coaches, and I have mentored other career coaches. A lot of my clients have actually landed roles by simply applying cold without a referral. And I'll tell you guys why. So, let me start with a story that hopefully is going to help you understand, okay, the concept of what I call positioning. So, a blind man was sitting outside a building with a sign that read, "I am blind, please help." So the sign said, "I am blind, please help." Hundreds of people walked past him every single hour. Business people in expensive suits, tourists with cameras, locals rushing to work, but the hat beside him was almost empty. No one was helping him. Then an advertising executive walked by. She looked at the sign, turned it over, and rewrote it. Obviously, the blind man didn't see the writing. you know. Suddenly, the hat began filling with money, coins, bills, constantly. Later, the blind man asked her, "What did you change?" She said, "Nothing. I said the same truth, just differently." The original sign said, "I am blind." Her version said, "It is a beautiful day and I cannot see it." Same thing. different wording, completely different results. And this is exactly what happens with most resumes. People think their problem is keywords, so they obsess over ETFs optimization, keyword stuffing, job description matching. But that's the equivalent of writing, I am blind. It's factual, but it's not persuasive. The people who land the best roles don't just list facts, they position their story. Instead of saying, I manage projects, they say, I built the systems that allowed leadership to scale. Instead of saying, I worked in marketing, they say, I helped a company unlock a new growth channel. The difference isn't keywords, it's actually meaning. It's positioning yourself as a problem solver. It is being empathetic and connecting with people. When you're putting a bunch of keywords and you think that by using different words you're being impressive, you actually aren't. It's not about using sophisticated language, it's actually using simple language that makes it about the person, not you. A lot of people, when they write resumes, they make the resume about themselves. I am this and I am that and I am awesome. You're positioning yourself as a hero when, as an executive, you're not meant to be a hero. You're meant to be a guide going in and fixing a problem at scale for an organization. And many times when I review resumes, I am sorry to say, I know you may not mean it, but it just feels like these resumes, how do I say this in a nice way? Well, first of all, they come across like you're an individual contributor because it talks about all of the execution things that you were doing, all the tasks that you were doing, like you are some kind of junior person. It doesn't really talk about, the teams that you've mentored, your leadership philosophy, and how you help, right? So this is a lesson that I want you to get out of this. The thing is, I understand that most high performers were never taught how to position their story. No one teaches you at that at school, right? And no one teaches you that in MBA school. And if you've been busy delivering and you've been busy achieving business outcomes, sometimes you forget the value of what you've done, especially in very large and complex systems. So now I want to help you understand, as someone who is targeting 200,000 plus leadership roles, how to do this and the process that I take my clients through this. Okay, so today I was helping a client with their positioning, and the first thing that I do with my clients is actually help them identify what their ideal role is. And that is one of the biggest blockers that many people face, is not having a target role. Let me explain what I mean by that. Because when I, get on consultation calls with people, here's what happens. A lot of people tell me that they're not getting interviews. And the thing is, if you're applying to roles and if you're getting ghosted, it's one of two things, okay? Either a large number of candidates applied ahead of you and the recruiter already shortlisted enough people, or someone was simply a better fit. And I know this is such a tough pill to swallow. And frankly, it's not a bad thing. There's a difference between not being the right fit and not being competent. You can be competent and you can be the wrong fit for a role. And this is something that I want you to understand. Okay? Now, how do we solve this? Yes, if you apply early, as soon as a job posting is posted, you can absolutely reduce the chances of you being rejected. But no matter how early you apply, if you are not the right fit for a role, you're simply not going to be called for an interview. Now, I've had clients beat referrals and internal candidates because they were simply a stronger match for a role. And so I am busting the argument right there that it's because I don't have a network. It's because I have a stronger chance, if I'm being referred. I had a leader who was competing with thousands of applicants at a role at MongoDB. And he was chosen globally, okay, without any referral, because he was clear on how his experience translated to the role. And there is a difference between you knowing what you're good at and what you enjoy doing and how that actually connects to a role out there. The translation piece is something that a lot of leaders have trouble with, especially if you've been in the same organization for many years. You start lacking that awareness of how your experience translates outside of the familiar context that you're in, also known as the organization that you've been in years. It's almost like if you've been in a very long relationship or a marriage, for many years, more than 5 years or 10 years, all you know is that person that you've been dating. You don't know what people outside of that partner that you've dated look for or value, right? So this is the same thing when it comes to applying for roles. The longer you haven't applied for a role, the harder it becomes understanding what the market is looking for. And I understand that it's very challenging knowing what they're looking for. Job postings are poorly written. It's not like you have time to do, market analysis and research and user interviews the same way that you build a product. But someone like me does. Someone like me does and makes it simpler for you. Okay, so fit beats everything. Now, here's a pattern that I've seen over 6 years with thousands of professionals. And this is how I know people struggle with this aspect of understanding what the target role is. This is beyond, title. This is beyond, function. This is a lot deeper than that. Usually, how I know that someone is struggling with this is when I ask them, what role are you targeting? And then I get a 10-minute narrative about the last decade of their career. So here's the thing. If I ask you what role you're targeting and you start describing to me the projects that you worked on and the achievements that you've delivered, you lost me. I care about people. So I usually, try my best to have the bandwidth to listen to that 10-minute narrative. But the thing is, recruiters don't have that attention span to literally translate that for you and figure out where you fit in and what category you fit in. This is not an application tracking system. A lot of people say, oh, it's because of the ATS. No, I'm sorry. You got to take ownership. You got to take ownership of what you can change instead of constantly blaming an external system. It is your responsibility as a leader to help the person who is trying to connect you with a role that you have. It's your responsibility to tell them where you fit in. This isn't like going to a shoe store and saying, I like blue shoes and I don't know what kind of shoes you have and tell me, match me with it. That's not how it works. Okay. You got to be able to categorize yourself, beyond titles. All right. So I want to show you the process of how I help people figure this out. So in one of my lives, a very recent one, I walked you through, if you haven't seen it, go into my LinkedIn lives or DM me and I will share it with you. I walked everyone through how I use a career archetype assessment to be able to look at, let's say, a client's entire experience, their childhood, their personality, in order to help them figure out what their target role is. It is a very comprehensive process. I'm not going to go through it again in the interest of time, because today I'm actually focusing on how the resume is built. That piece is very important. Without that piece, your resume will never make sense to a recruiter. That's the reality. It's almost like building a product without a marketing team. The marketing team needs to research what customers, want to solve in terms of problems, right? So that piece needs to be done in order to figure out your ideal role. Okay. So let us assume we figured out the ideal role. The second step that I have developed that is quite innovative, and I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. It honestly blows my client's mind in terms of how I do this. I'm going to do a screen share just so that you can see. Okay. And by the way, if you drop off, you are going to miss the whole process, but I know it's late. And if you want, the recording, because probably it's going to disappear, just DM me and I'll send it to you. Okay, so this is my career story architect GPT that I've developed. And the wonderful thing about this is this basically GPT analyzes job postings, and it asks you very comprehensive questions in order to pull the information out of your head. A lot of people struggle with remembering what they've done, and a lot of people don't even know where to start when it comes to building their resume. They don't know what to include. They don't know what's relevant to the roles that they're targeting. It can be an extremely overwhelming process. And when you use the regular Chat GPT, not, my custom GPT, it starts following an approach that is quite generic, and you end up with very watered down, high level, basically non-specific, resume that anyone can tell is ChatGPT. Hey, Spencer. So nice seeing you again. Always in my lives. Love it, man. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you an example of a job posting here, and I'm going to paste it. We're going to pretend that I'm applying to this role. So I'm going to start by analyzing the job posting. You can see I clicked on this, and then it is going to ask me for it. And I'm actually going to copy and paste it in the chat. So it says, obviously, I need to see the actual job posting. Please paste the full job posting text here so you can see I posted it. And what the GPT does is it takes the job posting and extracts the top themes. So one of them is end-to-end program leadership. This is a program manager role. And one of the themes that it pulled out is an end-to-end program leadership role. The second one is complex, systems development. The third one is cross-functional leadership. The fourth one is schedule budget. So it's awesome because it really forces you to pay attention to the 10 most important themes in the job posting. Okay? So a little backstory of this job posting and a client that I'm helping is she came to me thinking that she should be targeting product management roles. And after going through my career archetype assessment, what we've realized is that she's actually better suited for program management roles. Now, I want you to think about this. For an entire year, she's been applying for product leadership roles. Why do you think she was getting rejected? In her mind, she thought it was the ATS. In her mind, she thought, okay, maybe her resume wasn't good enough. I mean, there's an element of truth to that. But it's also because her experience actually fit more in a program manager bucket. And this is why recruiters had trouble seeing her as a product manager. This is why when she would go to interviews, the hiring managers did not see her as a product manager. And this is why it's important to figure out how your experience translates to the right role effectively, because you end up wasting time, you rewrite your resume, you keep trying to fix the wrong thing. And when you're fixing the wrong thing, of course, you're going to get the wrong result. And not a lot of people are able to diagnose this because you have people who don't understand the concept of positioning, and they don't sit down with you and try to look through your experience in more detail. It's kind of like going to a doctor who doesn't do the blood work, the complete blood work, who doesn't do the diagnostic, and is giving you advice based on limited data. That's not what I do with my clients. I make sure that we're looking at all of the data in order to diagnose where the issues are in terms of why they're not getting traction, why they're not getting interviews. Sometimes, I will say 90% of the time, it's because they are targeting the wrong roles. And then once we fix that, it ends up being because they're not going specific enough in their experience. They're not understanding what hiring managers are looking for. And so this step, where we basically, after we figure out what the right role is, in this case, we figured out program manager is the right role for my client. We went even more specific, where we picked an example job posting that she's interested in that fits into that bucket. And we went even granular into studying what are the common patterns that hiring managers look for in a program management role. You might know them. It may seem logical, but sometimes you'll miss certain things because you're not doing things in a very methodical way. And so this GPT forces my clients to follow a process so nothing gets missed, so that they're thorough in their positioning, so they're addressing all of the different points of what a hiring manager looks for in a particular organization. Okay, so once we go through the step where basically the job posting is broken down into themes, then what the GPT does is it asks you, which role from your last 10 years should we start with? Tell me the title, the company, the rough dates. Obviously, I'm not going to share with you my client example because I respect all of my client confidentiality. So I'm going to give you fake data so that you can follow along. I'm actually going to use myself. So I'm going to say Slalom is the name of the company that I worked for. The title was, let us say I'm going through a pivot. So I'm just going to say, let's say product director. Let's say I'm a product director Even though my title was product director, I was more playing of a program manager, duties. And so I'm going to say product director. And I'm going to say the date was January 2017 to, let us say, September 2018. Okay. Now, notice the type of questions. And by the way, I designed this based on thousands of coaching calls. These are the types of questions that I noticed I was asking all of my clients to extract the right information that would go into the resume. So notice how the question that this is asking me, right? I need to understand the scope and scale of this role before we choose stories. Why is it asking this question? Because this is something that I've realized a lot of recruiters focus on. Yes, your title can be a quick indication of what you've been doing, but nowadays anyone can fake a title. And I've helped people who did not have the title move up to VP level roles. How we did that is by describing the scope and scale of the role. Okay? What do we mean by scope and scale? So if you're, let's say, overseeing a 50, let's say, employee team, right? It's different than you managing a program that has only 10 stakeholders. So these are like objective pieces of data that helps the recruiter make a decision as to whether you're relatable to the organization's environment. And a lot of people skip through these things and then wonder why. Oh, yes, I put in all the keywords. Well, that's because the job posting does not necessarily mention how many people you need to oversee to qualify for the role. But these are subtle things and indicators that helps the recruiter get a feel of your level. So as you can see, the GPT asks, include anything you remember about the type of product or system, industry, client, how many teams were involved, approximate users, customers, or revenue impact. So let us say I worked on a Salesforce platform that helped the client create marketing campaigns for big brands such as The Gap, and I managed, I will say, 10 teams on the program. Each team had approximately, and I'm totally like, rambling here, right? As I tell the GPT, you can actually use a microphone to be able to like speak to it, which I find a lot of executives struggle less with when you're speaking versus typing. But I'm just going to type here. So each team had approximately 20, team members. I will say they have over 1 million, I think it's more like 3 million plus customers and 2 billion in revenue. Okay, so do you see how it's wonderful? It summarizes, all the information. It got great information on the scope. So product director, Salesforce marketing campaign platform, client brands, Gap, Neiman Marcus, major retail brands, scale 10 teams, 20 people per team, 200 people total program scale, over 3 million customers impacted, 2 billion revenue ecosystem. When you're putting those numbers, it makes it very easy for a recruiter to understand your level, right? Now, the next part, What was the major initiative or transformation you were leading on the Salesforce platform? Notice the question that it's asking me. It's not going into tasks. It's asking me about the why. And that's what a lot of you struggle with is you don't talk about the big problem or the goal that you were brought to solve as an executive. Notice how wonderful this is. It actually prompts you and gives you some examples so that you're not, stuck starting from a fresh, white piece of paper. And again, the reason it's able to do this, it's because I've fed it thousands of client cases. And that's how it's able to give these suggestions. So in my case, what happened was I was actually scaling. I'm actually going to speak to it because I'm lazy. So what we were doing was we were trying to solve the issue where the client was taking too long to actually launch marketing campaigns for their users. That is because their existing platform couldn't handle the load. And also, there was a lot of manual work in between. The system did not cover all of basically the workflows. The other thing is each department, each account operated differently. And there wasn't a standardized process across the board because all of the accounts within that program were disconnected. Okay, so let's see what it actually does here. So I gave it this rant, and now what it's going to do is it's going to polish it. You see how it actually crafted the situation so well? It actually turned it into a story. And wouldn't that translate more beautifully into a resume in your words in an authentic manner versus you trying to copy and paste keywords, right? So when we go at this level of depth, of course, you're going to have a better resume. And that's the thing that people don't understand is because you're not going about it the right way. So look at this narrative that it's pulling together. The situation at Slalom, I was leading development of a Salesforce-based marketing campaign platform supporting major retail brands like Gap and Neiman Marcus. The approximate program scale was 10 cross-functional teams, 200 people total, more than 3 million customers, over 2 billion in revenue. The challenge is that the campaigns were too slow to launch. The existing platform couldn't handle scale. There was manual work between systems. There were disconnected workflows, different processes across departments and accounts, and no standardized campaign process. Now, notice how the GPT doesn't stop there. It just keeps drilling and drilling and drilling to extract all the gold that I've forgotten. So now it's asking me from everything you described, what was the single biggest obstacle, the villain of the story? I call it the villain. For example, was it mainly the platform couldn't scale, causing campaign delays? Was it fragmented processes across department accounts? Was it manual workflows and disconnected systems? Something else that made this program extremely hard. It's so funny. It's like it's reading my mind. Actually, it is the fragmented processes across departments' accounts. In fact, I remember when I was on the program, that was one of our biggest challenges is how the heck are we going to standardize processes across the account when there are so many outliers and when these departments don't speak to each other? All right, so I'm going to give it what I just said and look how it actually crafted it into a much better, well-articulated obstacle. So the biggest obstacle wasn't technology, it was organizational fragmentation. Different departments and brand accounts were running their own campaign processes with different workflows, different tools, different approval chains, no shared operating model. Because of this, campaigns took too long to launch, teams couldn't coordinate, the platform couldn't standardize automation, and there were many edge cases. So now let's build the story. Before I write this, I need one more detail for scope clarity. Were you the overall program lead for those 10 teams? Yes, I was the overall program lead. Did the teams ultimately report into your program leadership or you? Yes, they did. They all reported into me. Okay. So you can see how it's pulling the entire story together. Okay, so that's the process that I go through. And believe me, when you go into this level of depth and granularity, this is what makes a resume more compelling. Now, I'm not going to take you through the whole process of me building the resume from scratch because that would be insane. But actually, what I wanted to do is show you the end result. Obviously, again, I'm going to provide a caveat here. All this information is not real because I do not share, sensitive client or identifying client information. So just keep that in mind. So a lot of this information has been modified so that you would never know who this person is. But this is the end result of the first page of a resume that I've written for a client. Well, let's say we wrote it together because I teach my client how to do this. And I kind of find it funny when people get on consultation calls with me and say to me, "How many sessions do I get with you? Do you work with people one-on-one?" I kind of chuckle because I actually spend more time with my clients than any coach that I've met. But we don't always, let's say, meet on our own one-on-one. I built my program so that it is a very streamlined and efficient process. Because at the end of the day, do you want to be sitting with someone all day speaking? Or do you actually want to work on things and get them done in the fastest way possible? I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy meetings. I mean, if you're an executive or a senior individual contributor with more than 15 years of experience, you already are burnt out from meetings. If there was a way that you could get your work done without meeting with anyone, that would be the dream, right? So the way I've designed this is that I give my clients a system so that they're able to follow and it's easy. You can see some of the innovation that I have. I have, GPT tools to streamline the process so that they can sit in their pajamas and work on this without, feeling like they have to find time and meet with me. The second thing is once they take a good stab at this and, there are some videos that guide them through it, I actually take over the resume and start editing. Because the reality is, I've tried this in so many different ways. Most people cannot write their resume completely on their own. They need someone on the outside, someone who is a professional and a copywriter and does this for a living, to, let's call it, word massage the resume. Now, one of the things that I do once my clients basically go through the GPT and give it all the information is we sit down on a call and I literally go through all of the stories that my clients have written out on their own, that they have journaled using the help of the GPT. The reason I get people to do that is because I find then that when we have a conversation versus people giving me like, documents that are written out, I find that more ideas come out of our conversation. I want you to almost think of it like, I don't know, if you've ever seen movie writers, they're all sitting in a room writing a movie scene together and they bounce ideas off of each other. It's a lot more fun that way, right? Than them saying, okay, I'm going to work on my part of the script and I'm going to email it to you and then you can review it and proofread it. That's not collaboration. I love collaborating with my clients. I love building things together with my clients. Okay, so once we have that conversation, and I usually record it and start asking, so many questions to get the context and wrap my head around what my clients have done, then this is the end result. This is where I wordsmith and I make it look pretty. And guess what? When a recruiter looks at something like this is so easy on the eyes. This is something that they're going to enjoy reading. And look at this paragraph. It actually tells a story. When you look at it, you can see what level this client is at. Right off the bat, in the first sentence, lead end-to-end program management of a 1 million plus account, right? If I'm reading this, I know I don't need to know your title. It doesn't matter to me what you're called, whether you're program manager or product manager. I know what scope you are able to handle, and therefore I can translate your seniority. Oh my God, won't this layout fail the ATS? I'm going to scream from the top of the mountain. But thank you for asking that question. Listen, I don't blame you for having that question because there's so many myths out there. And I didn't want to get into it, but all right, let's get into it. Look, first of all, let's talk about the whole application tracking system thing because I'm going to post about this tomorrow, but let's talk about it. For context, I have seen inside the application tracking system, whether it's workplace, greenhouse, you name them. I've seen the inside. There are a lot of people who tell you how the ATS works and all of this, propaganda. Even before AI, existed, they'll tell you that there were bots and all this stuff. And unfortunately, those people have never seen what the application tracking system looks like behind the scene. Now, let me clarify a few things. There are HR people who say this to you, and the sad truth about this is some of these HR people, they're not talent acquisition folks. They don't actually do the screening. They don't actually do the sourcing, and they've never used an application tracking system. I don't know why they say this. I have absolutely no idea why they propagate these myths. You got to listen to people who actually use the application tracking system. And those people are usually talent acquisition professionals. External recruiters, unfortunately, I've also seen them propagate this myth. First of all, external recruiters, they have no business using an application tracking system. Their entire value proposition is the fact that they actually have, personal relationships with hiring managers. Why would they put you through an application tracking system? That would defeat the purpose. Again, I don't know why they say this to you. There are people who also want to sell you tools that they want to profit from. And it's almost like, unfortunately, everyone call themselves a coach these days, right? Or everyone calls themselves a doctor these days, even when they're not trained or have a medical degree. This is the same thing, unfortunately. People see an opportunity, they see people in pain, they see people struggling, and so they come up with what they call as a solution when they weren't trained or don't have the knowledge. So there's that. As far as, will this be parsed correctly through an application tracking system? Maybe not. Okay. Even if you have a plain text or non-text box based resume, there's no guarantee that it's going to be parsed correctly. Just like you would upload a PDF into ChatGPT and it might not parse it correctly. What you can do is you can see the information and you can edit it yourself. And no recruiter is going to look at parsed records, because essentially what the application tracking system is, it's called tracking system, first of all, not screening system. All it is it's a database and a way for a recruiter to manage basically records of applicants and set a status to them in terms of whether they've been interviewed, not interviewed, or screened. And when a recruiter screens you, they're not going to look at information that's inside a record. They're actually going to open the PDF file of your resume. The issue, the reason, again, if you go back to my live, some of you have missed it. You did not catch this from the beginning. The reason you get ghosted comes down to two things only. Either you applied too late, and by too late, I mean they don't need to interview 1,000 people. They'll probably select the first 20 people who apply, who are qualified. And so if there are 20 people ahead of you who applied, why would they interview you too? Right? So it depends on your timing of when you applied for the role. This is why I encourage people to not apply or to prioritize roles that have been only open for 24 hours versus a week or a month. The second reason that's going to hurt, and I'm going to say it bluntly, you simply aren't a fit for the role. And again, fit doesn't mean that you're not a competent professional or your experience. Fit simply means that you just aren't the right fit, right? So maybe they're looking for certain skill sets, or maybe you've managed teams in large organizations and they're looking for someone who managed teams in small organizations. So this is why I said at the beginning of this conversation, if you don't target the right roles, it doesn't matter how well written your resume is. It's almost like you going to a store and saying, I want chocolate ice cream. And all they have is vanilla ice cream and strawberry ice cream. And they'll say to you, but this vanilla ice cream is the best ice cream out there. It's made with Sicilian, cream. And you're like, I don't care how great the ice cream quality is. My preference is chocolate and you have vanilla, and this is not going to work. So this is it. And I encourage you, like, if you're getting rejected, not to take it personally, because it doesn't mean that you're not a great professional or you're amazing at what you do. It simply means that what they're looking for is different than what you offer, and you need to figure out what the right target is in terms of role and how to categorize yourself effectively so that you don't run into these issues. But great question, Faridun. I really love it. I'm not, mad at people asking this question. I'm just mad at the people who actually spread this misinformation and confuse you all, because it's unfortunate. When you're all confused, then you keep trying to fix the wrong things, right? Okay. So, I hope that this is helpful. And I hope that what you're getting out of it versus fixating on the format, because to me also, it doesn't matter. If you don't want to use this format, don't use it, right? But the basic principles hold true. Think about it from a logical perspective, because a lot of you are also hiring managers. You look for jobs, but you're also hiring managers. Would you interview someone who's being specific and giving and not being too high level and telling you and giving and disclosing information around the size of programs that they've managed, instead of saying I've managed a large program? Would you interview someone who says I've managed a large program, or would you interview someone who is specific and tells you I've managed $1 million program, right? The more specific you are about what you've done, the higher the chance of you being selected, because no one has time to give you the benefit of the doubt anymore. No one has time to make assumptions about what you've done. No one has time to read between the lines and tell you where you fit in. You got to make that determination for the person to make it easy for them. Give them the information that they need in order to make a decision. And again, don't fabricate things. Don't try to, stuff a bunch of keywords in a meaningless way. It really is about being specific and meaningful, and also figuring out what your category is. If you don't know what your category is, then you're just wasting time. You're going into a store and asking for chocolate ice cream when all they have is vanilla. Okay. That is it. I can't believe that I did this live. I literally did not prepare. I literally winged this. But honestly, it's because I do this day in and day out. And because I figure if I'm building, someone's resume, I might as well talk about how I do it. Okay. So the types of clients who succeed working with me, honestly, it really comes down to a few things. It's people who are willing to be open-minded, right? I can't sit here and convince you or argue with you that this is the right process to follow, right? It needs to resonate with you. If you watch this and you're like, no, I don't think this is how it works, and no, there's bots and things, and this is why I'm being rejected, and you're not convinced about the concept of positioning, better communication, alignment, fit, if that doesn't resonate with you, then please don't reach out to me. I'll say that respectfully. I do what I do because I'm passionate about it. And it's just an uphill battle when people come on calls with me and try to argue with me. It's almost like they're looking for validation that there's nothing that they need to improve and the market is bad. If you think the market is bad, if you think there's nothing you can improve, then okay, that's fine. There's nothing here I can do to help you, because if you're not aware that there's something that you need to fix, then why come to me, right? There's nothing I can do to help you. But if you see this and you're like, wow, I never thought of this way. This actually makes sense. No one has explained it to me this way. And I love that, you help people follow a very thorough process, then that's promising. Then it's just a matter of reaching out to me and seeing if we're a fit and if my services align with your budget. And then we can, figure out how we can work together. The types of clients that I work with, generally, they're targeting 150,000 roles and above. Below 150,000, that was my previous life. I no longer do that. I did that before, but I no longer focus on that. It's not something that, let us say, is representative of the types of people in my community. And it doesn't make sense. If you're too junior, then I think you would be better suited working with a coach who has maybe a community of similar clients. That way you can relate to those people. If you are targeting 150,000 roles and above, then yes, I can help you. If you're looking to add, let us say more than $20,000 to your salary, and you're looking to grow in your career, if you identify as a high achiever and you already know that you're great at what you do, then I can help you. If you don't feel confident in your abilities, if you don't think you're great at what you do, if you think that you need to upskill or get certifications, then I'm definitely not the right person for you, because I can't fake what you bring to the table. All I can do is, shed the light on it and help you more effectively communicate it. That's what I do. And oftentimes I find the clients who are at a crossroads and they're not sure um, how their experience translates to a role out there are the best clients. They're not coming in just for like a resume tweak. They're coming in because they understand that a big reason they're not getting the right role is because they don't know how to translate their experience. It's usually people who have been at the same organization for a very long time. And so they've forgotten, how their experience translates to organizations outside of their ecosystem. It's usually people who feel they're being, let's call it, undervalued in their current organization. Maybe they've been passed on for a promotion. They've tried getting a promotion, but their organization, let us say, um, doesn't have an opening for a higher role, and you understand that it's good for you to look at options, right? Because if you stay at your organization and you've been hearing the same narrative around we're going to promote you and it's not happening, that means you got to find other options. Because if you don't change on anything, if you don't take action, nothing's going to change. And is it really worth it to just stay at a place where you feel unhappy? You're not going to lose anything by exploring possibilities that are out there. And the best way to do that is to revisit your experience, revisit the value that you bring to the table. And the funny thing is that when I work with people on that, sometimes they do end up getting promoted, even when they've lost hope. I had a client who was in that situation. He was trying to land a director level role. He was trying for so many years, and then he got fed up. He came to me, he said, I want you to just help me leave. And after we repositioned him, we revisited the way that he was articulating his value, he ended up landing a director level role internally. Okay. If you want to learn more about how I can help, you can book a career diagnosis. It's a 15-minute call. It's a way for us to get to know each other. It's not a coaching call. It's more of a let's determine if we're the right fit working together. And what you end up coming out of it is actually a plan, whether we end up working together or not, and a diagnosis of what you need to fix. So how do you book the career diagnosis? Very simple. You can go into my profile and I'm going to show you how to book it. So let's see here. So if you click on the book an appointment button, it's going to take you to this page and you can click on book your career diagnosis. Now, there's a 2-minute intake where you're going to get a set of questions. And the reason I ask these questions is because I want to understand your situation better. 15 minutes is not a very long time. So the more information I can get, the better I can help you and the better I can diagnose, what is going on, what's blocking you from landing that 200,000 plus role. All right. Happy Monday. If you've enjoyed this, please give me a like. That way I can get feedback. And yeah, I would be curious in the comments if you can let me know, what was your biggest takeaway? What was the most surprising thing that you've learned in this live? And fun question, what is the weather where you're at? Today it was 16 degrees Celsius. For those of you who are in the US, I always have to do this translation because I have people in both US and Canada. 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Beautiful weather. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, friends.